Do you want to know how I actually kept my small fishing boat on a wreck like this and did this drift? So I went across the same wreck a few times and got myself onto the congers. If you do, stay watching. There are a lot of modern units out there, chart plotters and things, but they all come at quite a price. So what I've done is got myself a kit together which is quite cheap, but it's effective and it uses Navionics. The Navionics app has got far more features than I'll ever use. So what I want to do today is just run through the things that I use that helps me to get onto the wrecks and helps me navigate my small fishing boat. So what I have is my old iPad. It's an iPad 2nd generation and I put it inside one of these rubberized cases. On the back here is also a mount, one of the mounts that has the kind of ram kind of fittings, and that's what I actually use to mount this inside the boat, but it just makes the whole thing a little bit more rugged for what we're doing. So that's the iPad part about it. So the other item that I've had to purchase is a Garmin Glow 2. When I bought this, they were on offer for about £60. The 2nd generation iPads didn't have their own internal GPS, so that's the reasoning for buying this Garmin Glow 2. So that will connect via Bluetooth to the iPad, and that will give us an accurate GPS position when we're using the Navionics app. Both of these can be run off a USB, and I have a USB fitting on the boat. I'll just show you now a photograph of the setup that we've got on the boat. I mount it above all the switch gear, and it's easy to read as we're going along. I also find that using this fitting up in the roof is quite handy for those moments when you're actually sort of stood on deck fishing and you've got the sun coming down low into the cuddy. Sometimes it gets a bit bright on the screen, and having the screen a little bit higher up in the roof of the boat just makes it easier to see. You get less light reflection on it. First of all, you need to download the app, so go to the iStore, click on the iStore there, type in Navionics Boating and you'll see the app on the right hand side. Two things to point out: don't rely on this app solely. You do need to have a compass and navigation charts on board. It's just an aid to navigation. And secondly, there are two versions of the app. One is free and the other is a subscription. The subscription version opens up all the navigation features, and that's really the one you want to go for. And as of January 2024, that was $39.99 a year. Once you've downloaded the app, you'll see you've got the icon here. So click on Navionics and open the app. And now we're going to set the app up. When you first open the app, it'll ask you to create an account. That's so that you can use the app on about 5 different devices, and it will sync all of your marks and your charts, etc. So all of your details will be synced together between the 5 devices. So go ahead and create yourself an account. Once you've created your account, go to Menu. Press Menu and we'll get the menu bar opens up on the left hand side. You'll need to be putting in some details underneath your profile. I've already got the name Real Time in there, but you'll probably just see the word profile. Click on the profile and you can add a photo if you want. It's not compulsory, but it's quite nice to have your own photo up there. But in the next box down, you can put the details of the boat. So length, beam, draft, how much fuel it uses, and the cruising speed. And these are details that are used when the app is in navigation mode. If we come back to our menu page, you'll also see a number of other things here. So tracks, routes and markers. Again, all of these are going to be blank for you, and you'll be setting up markers and routes as you go along. Initially, what you need to do is be downloading some maps. On the download maps option, if you click on that, you then get an option to select an area of the maps that you want to download to your device. So select what you want, and you can make this as large or small as you want. Hit download and you'll see we're now requesting the map. This will download the maps onto your device so that you can use them when you don't have access to Wi-Fi, which is particularly a good option when you're out at sea. At any point you can come back to update maps and make sure that these are up to date just before you go out. You can also delete maps that you've used from different parts of the country should you wish to. It's worth actually saying at this point there's a number of other things here in the menu items. One of them is weather and tides, and we'll come back to that a bit later on because there's a number of ways of getting to that position, and that will give you weather and tides at your current position, which is very handy when you're out on the water. Once you've downloaded your charts and got your basic information in, the next thing is to have a little look around and see what's on these charts. First of all, though, we're going to have a look at some of these icons that are actually on here. On the top left-hand corner, we have a magnifying glass. Clicking on that gives you access to searches. Searches for places, for harbours, moorings, but also it's got your markers at the top here. So I've got some markers in here. Skate hole, creel number 1, so that's last time where I dumped my creel. The Pandora jetty, etc. The next icon down is a camera. To be honest, I've not used that, but what it allows you to do is take an image and superimpose it onto your map. The third item down is the pin. Now the pin creates a mark on your exact location. So if you're out fishing on the boat and you hit that pin, it puts a mark on exactly where you are on the chart. If you want to create a marker somewhere where you're not currently located, just touch on the map and you'll get the question mark. Here we get the selected location. So we've got things like boat to marker weather add. We actually want to click on marker, and here we've got marker number 4. We don't need that, we can actually take that out. Let's suppose we caught a big fish. That's what we're going to call the mark. Close our keyboard down. We can actually give it an icon. So we'll give it this purple icon for fish ID. So we'll select that and we're going to save. So if we close that, we go back to menu, we've got markers here. So let's go back into markers and put in here big for big fish. We'll see there that we created it on the 4th of January here. If we wanted to, we can do some editing here, or we could share it. If you click share, you can share with your mates, or you can just delete things here. So as we didn't catch a fish, let's delete it and go back out of the menu. So that will clear it away from our menu there. And the method of creating markers there is what I've done for all of the things that you see on the screen here. The green fish was thornback, the blue was a huss, the little house sign is Milo Marina. The next item down there is the map view. So if we click on map view, it allows you to open a few things. Here you'll see the default is nautical chart. And that allows you to have a quite uncluttered chart. My preference though is to go to Sonar chart, and when you zoom in you get an awful lot more detail in terms of contours, and that just makes it a lot easier when you're actually fishing to find holes and depths and places where you can actually get hold of the fish. The next area that we've got on the left hand menu is overlays. Now currently we've got no overlay set. But if you click on things like satellite Bing, it gives you a satellite image, and you may want to pick out what a particular road is that's on a headland or a building or something like that. The other item we've got is relief shading, and as you'll see from that, it really highlights where you've got some rough ground. If we zoom in on that, it just gives you some very, very nice areas where you can actually fish over rough ground. Potential for wrasse, etc. on there. Also on the left hand side under map options we've got orientation. Now my head works best on north up, but you can make a selection whether you have north up, head up or course up. It's whatever works best for you. You can also update the maps and download maps from this particular point. The last icon on the left hand side at the bottom left hand corner is a little kite sign. So once you click on that little kite, it will center the map on your current position. If we head over to the right hand side, at the top right hand corner, you'll see there's plus and minus. These two allow you to zoom and zoom in and zoom out on the map. You can also use two fingers like the pinch and manually move the map around. In the bottom right hand corner is a lovely little feature, and you'll see it's like a little protractor. When we click on that, we get two icons on the map, and these are actually giving you the distance from two given places. So you may be fishing one mark and you want to head to the next mark. A very handy little tool there if you want to work out how far offshore you are, for instance. Clicking on that icon again will take you back to the start. Whilst we're in the chart view, it's well worth looking for these arrows that you'll see here. So if we click on the arrows, that's going to give us some tide information. So let's just click on that. This actually gives us, if you look at the graph at the bottom here, what the tide is doing, and you can see that arrow is actually turning. So on an ebb tide, it's red, and it's telling us the speed of that, 0.3. Then as the tide turns, it starts to pick up again, and we'll get some idea of the different directions, rates of speed, so 0.25. So it gives you an idea of the direction and flow that we've got. And that's particularly useful for when you're on the wreck. So if you're on a wreck, you can figure out where the tide is actually moving, but then of course you've got to factor in the wind and which one is going to win the battle. Either the tide or the wind move your boat about. So one of the things I also want to show you are these tide information. So if we click on this little square here, it gives us some information about the tide in the Helford River here. It's now opened up a chart at the bottom, which is actually telling us a little bit more about the chart and the tide information in this area. Now, at the moment, we're about the top of the tide, so we've got 4.2 meters. It's just past high water, so it's red, it's beginning to fall. On this chart, you'll see that the green area dries out and the pale blue area is about a 2 meter contour. Now, what I find interesting is that if you move this graph at the bottom here, look how the chart changes and fills in with how that water has gone out and how much shallower it's actually got in that area. This might be useful to stop you running aground, but also as to where fish may actually be. If we look at details, this actually gives us the precise timing for high and low water at that particular point. It gives us some information about the height of the tide. It also gives us a little bit of information about the moon here. So if you're into your lunar schedules and fishing, then it could be helpful for that. Another fantastic feature is that if you click on an item, in this case the lateral buoy at Myler Harbour, so clicking on this gives us some interesting information. So it gives us the actual location of that lateral buoy, but what it can do is give you the weather. So if you click on weather, which is a fantastic little option, it's telling you now that it's actually raining, the temperature. If we look down this left hand side, we can see that at 3 o'clock it's 100% going to be raining. We've also got a little bit about the wind speed, 9 miles an hour. We've got a state of the tide, which is 2.4 above LAT, lowest astronomical tide. We've got the direction that the tide is actually falling, and you can look through and scroll through and see as the tide is coming back and which direction it's going to be going in. You can also scroll through to other days of the week. The other feature I like is actually down below here where it says maps. If you click on wind, just wait one moment until it loads up, and then you actually get the wind pattern here. And it's actually just scrolling through over the next few hours and letting us know exactly which direction that the wind is going to go in. So here we've actually got, what have we got, Friday at 9 o'clock, and you can see it keeps leaping forwards in about, say, 3 hours at a time. There's also some more detail that's indicated by this green kind of kite mark here. That opens up a aerial photograph, so a satellite photograph of the harbour, in this case St. Mawes. If you click on start in the middle here, it will create a track log of where you've been and the distance that you've covered. That's how I actually got the track log on that little photograph that I showed you at the very first start of this video, where I was going backwards and forwards over the wreck. You can simply click stop to stop that again. The next item that we really need to look at is routing. At the bottom of the page here, we've also got route, and if we click on route, we get 3 options: automatic, manual, or my routes archive. You can save routes. Once you've actually created a route, either by automatic or manual, you can actually save it, and that's where my routes archive comes in. First of all, we're going to have a look at automatic routing. If we hit automatic, it will ask us choose a starting point, and we can tap and hold on the map just to say where we're going to start off from. From this case, it's going to be Myler Marina. Then we want to tell it where we want to go. I would say a marker here. Let's just say we want to go to that wreck that we looked at earlier, the NG Pedersen. And you can see here that it's actually given us the distance. It's about 4 miles from Mila Marina. It reckons I'm going to use about 2 litres of fuel at my boat settings. And there you go. You can see how it's actually taken you around Pendennis Point and out to the wreck. Now, be aware, you know, this map thing doesn't actually know if there's any other boats in your way or any other hazards. So it's just an aid to your navigation. It gives you an idea of where to point to. Here, when you actually want to sort of select this, you can press the green go arrow there and it will give you a course to steer. If you recall, we put information in about the boat and the boat settings, and that's where it's getting this information from, that the time it is actually going to take me at my cruising speed of about 10 knots and how much fuel I'm actually going to use. So it took that information from that first profile page that we put in. When I made that route, I started the route just by pressing on the map to create a start point. But if you notice, it's come up and it says it's got 1 hazard along the route. So let's have a look in more detail as to what that hazard is. And if you see on the left hand side here, you've got the little arrow, so you can open up and close to get some more detail. First of all, you can edit, and I put here test with hazard. Why is there a warning triangle on that starting point? Well, if you look at the nautical chart, it doesn't seem to have any kind of issues that are going on there. But if we select a satellite image, it seems that I started that in amongst the trots of moorings, not actually in the main navigation channel. So what the system has done is actually warned me that if you're going to start from that point, look out for some other boats. Now we could change things and edit. So if we take that back out, if we close the details and go back to route, we can go edit. That would allow us to manually edit and move that first point. So in manual mode, we need to just click on a starting point. We need to avoid pen narrow point, so we will put another mark over here. We need to come down the main navigation channel. We need to come out towards St. Mawes. We have a final point over here at St. Mawes Harbour. That will actually give us a reasonable route round and some waypoints to steer to. And again, press go and it will take you from one waypoint to the next. So you can do your manual planning as well. Now it's well worth remembering with our routes, which we can get to either through the menu here from routes, say route 6. Should we be out at the wreck and the fog comes down and we can't see where we're going, it will actually start and help us to navigate back through the channel, through the Carrick Roads, back to Mila Marina. Again, bear in mind, it is just a guide. You are definitely going to have to be keeping a very sharp lookout for bigger vessels because you are going across the channel there. But a good way of helping to find your way back, just in case you completely lose your bearings and directions. So having gone through the features of Navionics, looking at how we can improve the chart, etc., let's go back to that original photograph that I showed you of the wreck. Now, if you looked at a normal nautical chart, this is what you would actually see. Not an awful lot of detail. If we go to our layers and put a sonar chart on, it starts to increase a little bit of detail. Even more so if we put on the relief shading. Now, you remember we talked about tides and how to find out about the tides. We also talked a little bit about the pressing the start menu to get a track log. Armed with those 2 bits of information, on the day I was able to start a track log so I could see where I was coming from. And on that day I came in from a southwesterly direction, so the bottom left hand corner of the map, and started to go across the wreck. I was using my sounder at the time. I could see the wreck coming up on the sounder and it actually matched up with what we'd got here on the Navionics chart. I went over the wreck and ended up towards the top right hand corner. So I allowed the boat to drift backwards. I could feel the wind on the bows and it turned the boat round, and I had an idea of which way the tide was actually sort of running. And on this day the two were going together. But not too much. It wasn't too strong a wind.
The wind was coming more or less, I think, from the east, if I recall. And that's how we got that zigzag pattern across the wreck. And that enabled me then to decide, right, I can either drift backwards and forwards across the wreck, or I could possibly put an anchor down and see myself drifting back and allowing enough anchor line out so I sat over the wreck and could drop my lines down and hopefully catch a conger. And on that day I did. I got a couple of strap congers. So that's how I was using all of the information that was on the Navionics on my iPad to guide me onto that wreck and hopefully get myself onto the fish. It's worth mentioning that even some of the inland locks like Loch Orr have been mapped by Navionics, and this was really helpful for when we were catching the ferrex trout, that it's not just for sea, it's also inland as well. I wanted to show you this hidden feature. So this is up on Loch Orr, and when we're trolling for the ferrex we're using a downrigger, and it's quite hard to keep that downrigger in the correct depth of water. Now what I found was that you could actually open this side menu and go to map options. If it's not already highlighted, it's in this area under here, map options. Now we've looked at the different chart areas and orientation, but if you scroll down, there's also a thing called fishing ranges on the Sonar chart. And if you select that, and give it a depth range. So here I've got 9 to 10 meters and I've given it a color. You can have whatever color you want. If we just zoom in on that, it's giving you a much neater track of somewhere to follow. You can give it whatever color you want. That's not that important, but you can change the depth. So if you wanted to troll at a different depth, you could do. But if we said we wanted to troll somewhere between 8 and 10 meters, you can now see that those contours are actually highlighted, and that's the course that you want to plot with the boat so that you don't get the downrigger hooked up on the bottom. I thought that was really handy. I didn't know about that. I've just discovered it on here, so I'm going to call that a hidden feature. Just shows you where you can actually troll and hopefully close in to the shore and get ferrex and trout or whatever. So that's fishing ranges on chart Sonar, and by default it's turned off. But I think that's a very useful one to turn on in these circumstances. So I hope you found that little video useful. I've really enjoyed making it actually. I found 1 or 2 new hidden features that I didn't actually know about, so I've shared them with you on the video. That's how I used Navionics on my small fishing boat. It puts me on the marks, it helps me to navigate, so it's a good cheap little system really. Hope you got something useful out of the video. Please put some comments in the comments section below and I'll answer any questions that I can for you. Okay, we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.